بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Respected brothers and sisters, we're continuing the signs of Qiyamah, the ends of times, what will happen, what is going to take place, what should the believers be prepared for, and what are we going to expect in the near future. Last week we talked about the coming of Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam, when he will come back and he will finally finish off Dajjal at the gates of Bab Lud. After Dajjal is finished, there will be a period of great prosperity. The entire world will be at peace and ease, and everybody will be enjoying. And then what will happen? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send another trial and another tribulation. And that one of the final tribulations will be the Ya'juj and Ma'juj. And respected listeners, one of the things that we learn from this, you see periods of prosperity, and then you see there are periods of testing and tribulation, and then again there are periods of prosperity, and then again there are periods of tribulation. All of this is a sign for us that this dunya, it's not a place of qarar. It's not a place of establishing yourself. Qarar, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers, Darul Qarar, the place of being established, that is the next world. That is the next life. Where you will be established, you will be at peace, you will be at ease, and there's no change in that condition that you will be in. That is what you call peace and happiness. Right? And that's the special thing of Jannah. That's the special thing of the Akhirah. Bounties of this world, they're never secure in your hands. It's always what we call ala zawal. It's always declining. It's always at the tip of your fingers. There's a moment where it's going to slip out of your hands. And ultimately, when a person passes away, every bounty of this world is gone. But the bounties of Akhirah, that's Darul Qarar. That's the place where you are established. All good things, all bounties, all favors, they will remain forever. And you don't have to worry about difficulties coming after that. But as long as you remain in dunya, as long as you remain in this world, that's how Allah made this place. It's not a place where you want to place all of your bets, so to say. It's not the place that you want to give it your all. It's not the place that every single drop of your sweat, your blood and your tears, it should not be for this dunya. Because dunya is always going to fail you. And you can see this from the signs of Qiyamah. That imagine that period when Isa alayhi salam comes back and the believers and the whole world is following one way under Prophet Isa alayhi salam, such peace. The predatory animals are playing with the sheep. The produce of the earth and the crops, everything seems like it's perfect. You're in complete bliss. The world has never been better than that. But what happens? Allah shows us. Don't get your heart inclined to this dunya. Even at that time when Prophet Isa alayhi salam has united the whole world, still the dunya is not the place to put your heart in. Ya'juj and Ma'juj will come, they will disrupt that peace. True peace and ultimate peace is not for this world, it's for the Akhirah. And that's what we learn from these signs, my brothers and sisters, is never put your heart in this dunya. Always keep your heart on the Akhirah. Always keep your heart on the next world. That's where true happiness lies. So the Ya'juj and Ma'juj, they will come down. Min kulli hadabin yansilun, from every hill, from every place that's high, they will come rolling down. Right? Because there'll be so many in number, and so fast they'll be coming down, it's going to look like they're just rolling down every hill. Everywhere you look, you're going to see Ya'juj and Ma'juj are coming down. Right? And with regards to this Ya'juj and Ma'juj, there are a couple of things that everyone must understand. Firstly, and we've talked about this quite a few times before, what the Quran has mentioned in detail, there's no room for argument. We accept that. It's clear-cut proof. It's fact. When an authentic hadith of the Prophet ﷺ mentions something, close your eyes and accept. There is no room for debate. Beyond that, you have research that has been done using clues, using, history, using historical facts, trying to put two and two together. And researchers have come up with different conclusions based on putting two and two together. These types of things, it's not authentic and directly from Quran, it's not authentic and directly from the hadith. It has a lot to do with the research of the researcher and the scholars. So there's room for difference of opinion, and it's not 100% factual. Right? So that's what I want everyone to understand. In this topic of Ya'juj and Ma'juj, what has been mentioned in the Quran, what has been mentioned in the hadith, there's no room for debate there. What's beyond that, there are differences, and that's not a problem. Right? One scholar might come up with one conclusion, another scholar might come up with another conclusion. In the end, we'll see who's right. Right? But you cannot cement your heart on any particular way, because the possibilities are several. Right? And also keep in mind, with many of the signs of Qiyamah, there were ulama that said, for example, I think this sign refers to this. This sign refers to this. And then after a few years, what happened? They changed their mind. Something else happened that was much more clear. They said, several years ago, my hypothesis and my estimation was that it's referring to this, but now look what happened. It's much more clear right before our eyes. Right? So that's just something to keep in mind. So first what we're going to do is, we're going to understand Ya'juj and Ma'juj from the Quran. Right? Ya'juj and Ma'juj in the Quran, they're mentioned in Surah Al-Kahf, and they're mentioned under the story of Dhul Qarnayn. The person by the name of Dhul Qarnayn. Okay? And why is Dhul Qarnayn mentioned in the Quran? Because the Jews of Medina Munawwara, they wanted to test the Prophet ﷺ, and they told the Quraysh, some of the Yahud, they told the Quraysh, ask the Prophet ﷺ these three questions. If he can answer these questions, that means he's a truthful prophet, and you guys better follow him. Right? The three questions that they asked, or told the Quraysh to ask, was number one, tell us about Dhul Qarnayn. Number two, they said, tell us about the people who took refuge in the cave, the Ashabul Kahf. And thirdly, tell us about the Ruh. Tell us about the soul. These are the three questions that we want to know. If the Prophet answers these three questions, he is definitely a true prophet. And what happened, brothers and sisters, when the Prophet ﷺ got these questions, the Prophet ﷺ didn't study the previous scriptures. He didn't study the Bible. He didn't study the Torah. Right? But what happened? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals to the Prophet ﷺ that which is haqq and that which is truth. Right? And this is another thing that we need to learn from. A lot of times, we look at our religious scriptures, we look at the ahadith, we look at the Quran, and we're like, okay, it's beneficial, there are good things in here, but we don't do it. And then suddenly, when science proves something is really good, then we'll jump on top of it. Oh, you heard the latest research? Scientific article. Why do you have to rely on the scientific article? The Prophet ﷺ already told you. His word is more superior, more befitting, more benefiting, right? And more valuable than any scientific research. If the Prophet ﷺ recommends something, there cannot be anything better than that. Right? SubhanAllah, you see nowadays, everybody's going after black seed oil. Right? Because they say, oh, it can protect you from coronavirus. So everyone, mashallah, morning and evening, right? Very consistent. Every morning and evening, you make sure you have 1 teaspoon of black seed oil, right? Because now science has proven to you that it's beneficial against the coronavirus. The Prophet ﷺ already told us, black seed is a cure for everything except death. There is benefit in it. Follow it. Your tasbihat, your dhikr, your Quran, all of these things, they're good for you. It's good for your spiritual nourishment, it's good for your mind, it's good for your overall well-being. What's stopping us from doing it? Right? So going back to what happened here, they asked these 3 questions. And the Prophet ﷺ, he doesn't make things up, he doesn't get things from other people. The knowledge of the Prophet ﷺ comes directly from where? It comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah revealed the verses of Surah Al-Kahf. And in Surah Al-Kahf you have a few details about Dhul Qarnayn. Okay? So let's look into Surah Al-Kahf and see what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنْ ذِي الْقَرْنَيْنِ. They ask you regarding Dhul Qarnayn. قُلْ سَأَتْلُو عَلَيْكُمْ مِنْهُ ذِكْرًا. Tell them that I will soon recite to you something about him. Notice, the Quran didn't say, I'm going to tell you his whole story. I'm going to tell you everything about him. No. So I'll tell you a little bit about him. I'll tell you a portion of his story. Right? And Wallahu A'lam, part of the beauty of this is so that people could research. You know, part of the beauty is you see, people that are trying to crack these puzzles. People that are delving into this research. You know, if it was clear cut, we wouldn't have had that opportunity to make 2 and 2 come together. إِنَّا مَكَّنَّا لَهُ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا. We granted him authority in the earth, we secured him and established him in the earth, and we made for him means. For everything we made a way for him. That means he was a person that Allah gave him all of the means to be the leader and the ruler that he was. Allah gave him the tools, He gave him the sifat, the qualities, the characteristics that were needed to be a strong leader. Allah gave him all of those things. Right? فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. He followed these means, he followed these ways which Allah had given him. حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغَ مَغْرِبَ الشَّمْسِ وَجَدَهَا تَغْرُبُ فِي عَيْنٍ حَمِئَةٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about when he reached the place of the setting of the sun. Where does the sun set? West. So the Quran shows us that Dhul Qarnayn, he went where? He traveled west. Okay? And it says that he went all the way there till he saw the sun setting in what? In a spring water which was murky. Hami'ah, it means it's like murky, muddy, brownish, darkish color. He saw the sun setting all the way until that point which he had reached. So, in a nutshell, the Quran is telling us he traveled as far west as he could, and he was the leader of those lands, and he took over, and he was a just leader wherever he went. وَوَجَدَ عِنْدَهَا قَوْمًا. Over there, he found a people. قُلْنَا يَا ذَا الْقَرْنَيْنِ إِمَّا أَن تُعَذِّبَ وَإِمَّا أَن تَتَّخِذَ فِيهِمْ حُسْنًا. He met a people there, and the Quran says that Dhul Qarnayn, he had the option. Either he will let these people go, or he will punish them. And what did Dhul Qarnayn do? He took over that area with justice, and he behaved with every single people that he conquered with mercy. He was not like any tyrant ruler like the people of the past. And that's what the Quran says. أَمَّا مَنْ ظَلَمَ فَسَوْفَ نُعَذِّبُهُ. As for those people who are oppressors, we're going to give them their due. We're going to give them what they deserve. وَأَمَّا مَنْ آمَنَ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا. As for those people who believe and they do good and they don't harm people, they don't have anything to fear. We're not going to harm them. Right? And then moving further into the surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغَ مَطْلِعَ الشَّمْسِ. Now he went to the place of the rising of the sun. Where's the rising of the sun? East. So first Allah says He went west, then He also went east, okay? عَلَىٰ قَوْمٍ لَمْ نَجْعَلْ لَهُم مِّن دُونِهَا سِتْرًا. So once He went east, the Quran is saying, the people of the east, they were such, they didn't find any barrier between themselves and the sun. So like the people of the west, they had huts, they had houses, they were able to build things. But the people of the east, they were more like nomadic, tribal type of people, and they just lived wherever they could. They didn't have these types of sophisticated buildings and things like that. And then Allah mentions the last part. حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغَ بَيْنَ السَّدَّيْنِ وَجَدَ مِن دُونِهِمَا قَوْمًا. When He went between the two passes, He went between the two mountains, what did He see? He saw that there's a nation there. لَا يَكَادُونَ يَفْقَهُونَ قَوْلًا. These people, because of being so isolated in the east, they couldn't even understand each other almost. And what did they say? They said, يَا ذَا الْقَرْنَيْنِ إِنَّ يَأْجُوجَ وَمَأْجُوجَ مُفْسِدُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. He said, O Dhul Qarnayn, there are these people called Ya'juj and Ma'juj, these two tribes that are near us, مُفْسِدُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. They cause great corruption in the earth. They're tyrants. Wherever they go, they corrupt. They kill, they plunder, they loot, they rob. They do every bad thing that you can imagine. Can you please help us out? Because every day our lives are in danger. These people from behind the mountain, they come, they plumage through our lands, and then they retreat back into the mountains. Can you help us? Can you do something for us? So the Quran describes that Dhul Qarnayn, he asked them to gather their materials and they built a huge wall from iron. And they plastered that whole wall up and sealed this tribe of Ya'juj and Ma'juj behind this wall. They became sealed. Right? That's what the Quran tells us. Until there. Further details of Dhul Qarnayn, what was his time period, what was his real name, all of this has been left out. And researchers and ulama, they have made their research to try and understand exactly who Dhul Qarnayn was. Right? So firstly, some people say Alexander the Great was Dhul Qarnayn. The famous Alexander. Right? The one who killed Darius, he established Alexandria, right? That Alexander the Great cannot be Dhul Qarnayn. And majority of the ulama, they have refuted this idea because Alexander the Great, he was not a believer. He worshipped fire and ajib things. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks in a praiseworthy manner about Dhul Qarnayn. So Alexander could not have been Dhul Qarnayn. Other people, they mentioned that Dhul Qarnayn, he was from the time of Ibrahim alayhi salam. They were contemporaries. Dhul Qarnayn and Ibrahim alayhi salam, they were around the same time period. This is what a lot of classical ulama have mentioned in their books. Right? Now the contemporary scholars, according to their research, they say it doesn't really make sense for Dhul Qarnayn to have been in the time of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Right? Especially considering what? Who asked the question about Dhul Qarnayn? The Yahud. So what does that show you? That means that Dhul Qarnayn was someone who had a lot of significance and importance to who? To the Yahud. That's why they asked about him. They said, if this Prophet, Muhammad ﷺ, if he knows about Dhul Qarnayn, that great guy that passed for us before, oh, he's a real prophet if he knows about him. Right? So that's why a lot of ulama, they have looked into the Bible. Right? Kind of similar to what we did last time. They looked into the Bible to try and see, is there any mention of a person like Dhul Qarnayn? If there is, that's most probably who it's talking about. Right? Because the Jews and the Yahud, that's who they looked up to and they revered. And he did something very important for them. Right? So, if you look in the Bible, there are different verses which talk about a person by the name of Cyrus. Cyrus, I don't know how you want to pronounce him. Cyrus, Cyrus. And many ulama say the details of Dhul Qarnayn, what he did, lines up exactly with the Cyrus figure from the verses of the Bible. Right? And some of those things we'll mention right now. So again, in the time period of Danyal alayhi salam, right? Remember Danyal alayhi salam, he was captured and he was imprisoned. He was captured and he was imprisoned. And the authorities of that time, who were a very oppressive nation, they knew that Danyal alayhi salam, he's a special person and Allah has given him a lot of insight and foresight. So they would ask Danyal alayhi salam a lot of questions and interpretations of dreams and things like that. Right? And some of these came before we talked about. So in the book of Daniel, Danyal alayhi salam, he mentions a dream that he has. This is what the Lord says to his Masih, anointed one. Right? It means like a special person here, not Masih like Isa alayhi salam. But look what it says. The Lord to his anointed one, Cyrus, whose right hand I take hold of, to subdue nations before him, and to strip kings of their armor, to open doors before him, so that the gates will not be shut. What does this show you? He's a man that's aided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he conquers a lot of lands from east and west. Right? And we're not going to go through all of the verses of the Bible, but there are verses which mention specifically east and west. It's very ajib if you look at the wording, because exactly how the Quran says, Maghrib al-Shams, the place of the setting of the sun, Matli' al-Shams, the place of the rising, east, west. These same exact concepts are found when the Bible is referring to this Cyrus person. Right? And when the Bible talks of Cyrus, there's always a lot of symbolism. So in one of the visions of Danyal alayhi salam, he says that he sees this Cyrus person, he came in what form? In the form of a ram. And what does a ram have? 2 horns. Qarn, in the Arabic language. Okay, let's break this down. Dhul Qarnayn. Dhu in Arabic means person of. And qarn means what? Horn. And qarnayn means what? 2 horns. So Dhul Qarnayn, the person of 2 horns. And look at that, exactly in the Bible when they're referring to Cyrus, he comes in the form of what? A ram. You see, things are kind of adding up and coming together, right? When you look at it from this perspective. Why is he called Dhul Qarnayn? That's another question. 2 horns. Did he really have 2 horns when he was alive? So the different interpretations that are given. Some say he was called Dhul Qarnayn because he had conquered the east and the west. So there's like 2 horns of land that he had conquered. And others say it was because in one of the battles he was injured on his head. So on his left side of his head and on the right side of his head he had like 2 marks which kind of look like horns. And some say it was because of his hair. He would part his hair in 2, and one side would be on the left and one side would be on the right. So it was like 2 horns here. Shouldn't say that in front of Samullah, because tomorrow he's probably gonna have 2 horns. So let's look what it says in Daniel. He says, "Then I lifted up my eyes and I saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had 2 horns." He just put it clear to you there. It had 2 horns. "And the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the other came up last. I saw the ram pushing westward. and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand before him. And that's exactly what Cyrus did. Wherever he went, nobody was able to stand in front of him. So, Wallahu A'lam, this is the first thing that we wanted to cover, is who exactly is Dhul Qarnayn, right? And another interesting thing, you remember I told you a lot of the classical ulama, they say that he lived in the time of Ibrahim alayhi salam, right? But if you look, the contemporary ulama have found that between 550 BC and 583, around this area where Dhul Qarnayn was, there was a person by the name of Ibrahim Zardasht. Ibrahim Zardasht. And they say that this person most probably had learned from Anbiya directly. He learned from some of the prophets, alayhimus salam. So Dhul Qarnayn was highly influenced, this Cyrus figure was highly influenced by Ibrahim Zardasht. So he learned the teachings of the Anbiya, maybe, through this person by the name of Ibrahim Zardasht. So, Wallahu A'lam, this could be the reason why a lot of the classical ulama said he was in the time of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Whereas those previous books or historians, whatever, when they said Ibrahim, they weren't referring to the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. They were referring to this Zardasht figure, right? So anyway, that's just the whole thing on Dhul Qarnayn. The last part of Dhul Qarnayn, what it mentions, is that he set up this wall. Because Ya'juj and Ma'juj, they were causing a lot of mischief, and they were, looting the lands, killing people, and really destroying the people who were around that area. So Dhul Qarnayn came, and he completely blocked them off, right? Now with regards to Ya'juj and Ma'juj, we covered Dhul Qarnayn, right? Now these people, Ya'juj and Ma'juj, who exactly are they? These people that were sealed behind the wall, and when Qiyamah comes near, they're going to come back down. Who are these Ya'juj and Ma'juj? So, because you find in other scriptures, they also have this concept of Ya'juj and Ma'juj. So a lot of their, narrations, they're not reliable. But unfortunately, many Muslims, they've gotten mixed up with these narrations, and they consider them to be the Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Whereas those are from, the Israeli riwayat, the Bani Israel, they made those narrations. A lot of them are made up, they're fabrications. For example, some of them say, Ya'juj and Ma'juj, some of them will be tall like trees, and others will be so short like little dwarfs. Their ears will be so big that one ear will flap over this way, and the other ear will flap over that way, and that's how they'll sleep. Their ears will be like blankets for them. This is what a lot of people say. And, unfortunately, even in a lot of lectures and things like that, this is what people believe. But Ibn Kathir, rahimahullah, he said very clearly that all of these things have no basis in Islam. Ya'juj and Ma'juj are human beings. They're normal human beings just like us. There's nothing different about them. The only difference is they're bloodthirsty, they have no compassion, they have no mercy, and their sole objective and aim in life is what? Mischief and corruption, right? And subhanAllah, just as a side point, I remember long time ago when I was probably like 10, 11 years old, one of the first lectures that I ever listened to, why I kind of got interested in studying from that time. The first lecture I listened to was a bayan on Ya'juj and Ma'juj. And unfortunately, he was talking about these stories. Big ears, going over here and there, and tall as trees and small. And subhanAllah, I was fascinated. And I remember the next whole week, everywhere I would go, I would tell all my friends, hey, you heard of Ya'juj and Ma'juj? You know who they are? They're going to come in Qiyamah. Their ears are like this, and they're like trees. Everywhere I would tell people this. And subhanAllah, then later on you find out all those stories were wrong. It was good while it lasted, right? So Ya'juj and Ma'juj, they're human beings, right? They are from Adam alayhi salam, and then when the flood took place, those few people that were saved in Nuh alayhi salam's ark, the progeny that came from Nuh alayhi salam, the Ya'juj and Ma'juj are from that progeny. That means they're humans. They're human beings. There is, some fabricated narrations that say otherwise, but there's no basis for that, right? Some people say, according to false narrations, that human beings are from Adam and Hawa alayhimus salam, right? But some people say that Ya'juj and Ma'juj, they are from Adam alayhi salam, but they're not from Hawa. Adam alayhi salam, his DNA somehow mixed up with the dust of the earth, and it formed a new creation which became Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Where did this come from? All of these things have no basis. Ya'juj, they're human beings just like us, right? And what type of people will the Ya'juj and Ma'juj be? Right? With the Prophet ﷺ, he gave us some of their descriptions. Right? Number one, they will be, or they are, very, very great in number. In the Mustadrak of Imam Hakim, rahimahullah, the Prophet ﷺ said that human beings, the whole human race, divide them in 10. 9 of those are Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Imagine that. And it comes in another narration where the Prophet ﷺ, this is in Bukhari and Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned about the hellfire. And he said, from every 1,000 people, how many will end up in Jahannam? What do you guys think? Anyone else? 750, 800? 900? Anyone else? 1,000. Oh, you just doomed everyone, man. Out of 1,000, man, no one has no hope left. We're all doomed. Prophet ﷺ said, 999 from those 1,000. You were close. So, when Sahaba heard this, radiyallahu anhum, they became very frightened. Out of 1,999 will end up in the fire. We're worried about ourselves. So they asked the Prophet ﷺ, like 999, that's a lot of people. We're worried. What if we're going to end up in there? What did the Prophet ﷺ say? He calmed them down. And what did he say? He said that from the Ya'juj and Ma'juj, there's 1,000 of them and 1 of you. That's the ratio in the comparison. So yes, there will be many, many going to the hellfire, but what is the reason? The Prophet ﷺ was explaining, because Ya'juj and Ma'juj, these people that are going to be bloodthirsty, tyrants, causing corruption and chaos in the earth, they're going to make up majority of human beings. The Prophet ﷺ also gave some descriptions about them, what they will look like. Okay? I'radul wujuh. Number 1. The first description that the Prophet ﷺ gave. They'll have wide faces. I'rad is the plural of arid. Arid means very, very spacious and wide. Okay? Sigharul a'yun. Small eyes. Sahbu shi'af. Their hair will be blackish red. Reddish black hair. كَأَنَّ وُجُوهَهُمْ الْمَجَانُ الْمُطْرَقَةِ. Their faces will be like plummeted shields. Shields that have been hammered. Dented. Like that leather material, when it's hammered, what happens to it? it becomes very spread out. Right? So it's an indication how wide they're going to have big faces. Like shields which have been hammered out. And the Prophet ﷺ also mentioned, لا يدان لأحد بقتالهم. Don't think that you're going to be strong to put up with these people. Nobody will be able to fight against them. Allah will give them that strength. You're not going to be a match for the Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Allah will give them that position. And that's why when they come down finally, what will Allah tell Isa alayhi salam? He's not going to tell him to fight against Ya'juj and Ma'juj. You would be committing suicide if that was the case. You're putting yourself in destruction. The Prophet ﷺ said that Allah will command Isa alayhi salam, go with my servants and go to Mount Tur. Go on top of the mountain, seek refuge there, and hide yourself away from Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Don't go anywhere near them. Don't try and put up a fight against them. لا يدان لأحد بقتالهم. You're not going to be able to face them in a fight. Go and hide on top of Mount Tur. And that is what Isa alayhi salam will do. He'll take the believers and they will go on top of Mount Tur. This time when they come out, right? How will they actually be able to emerge? Because as we know, they've been locked away. They've been locked from the wall of Dhul Qarnayn. Every single day, the Ya'juj and Ma'juj, what do? Breaking this wall, hammering this wall, trying to break it down and trying to get out. And every single day, to an extent, the wall will become damaged. And when nighttime comes, they'll get tired. And they say, oh man, let's leave the job, we'll finish it tomorrow. When they wake up in the morning, Allah will restore that wall exactly to how it was. Again, they'll beat the wall, try and break it down. Nighttime comes, oh it's late, we'll do it tomorrow. When tomorrow comes, what happens to the wall? It's repaired again by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then one day will come when someone from amongst them, they will say, we finished our job for today and we're tired, we'll finish the wall tomorrow, insha'Allah. When he adds that name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, look, think about that. Even when a person like this takes Allah's name, imagine when a believer who has iman takes Allah's name. Imagine that. This, filthy person, evil intentions, he will take the name of Allah, Allah will put an effect in his work by the name of Allah. Imagine if a believer, why don't we say Bismillah for everything? Right? We should think about this. 999 of these people will go in Jahannam. But someone from amongst them has enough aql to say, Insha'Allah, and take the name of Allah. We should feel ashamed. We should feel ashamed. We should have what we call imani ghayrat. Imani ghayrat means you should have some zeal over your faith. That man, the Ya'juj and Ma'juj are going to say Insha'Allah, but I'm shy to say Insha'Allah. The Ya'juj and Ma'juj who are destined for Jahannam, they will take Allah's name. But I wake up every morning and Allah is not on my tongue. The first thing on my tongue is WhatsApp, is Facebook, is Instagram, is who messaged. That should not be the first thing. The first thing should be the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what will be a source of barakah. That's what will be a source of blessings. So he will say Insha'Allah, and then the next day they wake up and what's going to happen? The wall is not going to be damaged. It's not going to be repaired. It's going to be damaged as it was. And then they'll continue break, and they will be set loose. Right? In the time of the Prophet ﷺ, he made an indication towards the Ya'juj and Ma'juj kind of getting out of this wall. Not getting out, but breaking it to a certain extent. It's mentioned, Bukhari and Muslim, Zainab bint Jahsh radiyallahu anha, she says that the Prophet ﷺ, he said, La ilaha illallah. He woke up, he was perturbed, he was scared, his tone of his skin changed. And he said, La ilaha illallah, waylun lil Arab, min sharrin qad iqtarab. Woe be to the Arab nation from an evil that has started to come close. فُتِحَ الْيَوْمِ مِنْ رَدْمِ يَأْجُوجَ وَمَأْجُوجَ مِثْلُ هَذَا. From the wall of Ya'juj and Ma'juj, this much has become opened. Imagine. This much becoming opened, the Prophet ﷺ was perturbed about that. Right? And subhanAllah, when you think about this narration, about how they're going to be stuck behind the wall, and only when they say inshallah they will come out. If you look historically at the Ya'juj and Ma'juj, right? They're human beings like us. They're known to, be farmers. They've done crops, they use tools and things like that. Allah will not make it cross their minds. Think about it. If they really want to get over that wall, what could they do? Who said they have to stop at nighttime? Right? Isn't it? You can say, brother, there's so many millions of them, right? Make shifts. You sleep during the day, I'll be graveyard shift. Wake me up at 7 in the morning and then I'll do the morning shift. Appoint people, 24-hour cycle, they could break that wall down easily. Number 2, why do you have to break the wall? You can also try and go. Use your tools and go over it. But look, this is the wisdom and the mystery behind how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala works. They are stipulated according to their taqdeer, according to the divine decree. It cannot even pass their minds to do that. If any one of them wants to say inshallah earlier than the appointed time, they can't say it. They're stuck at Allah's decree. What does this show us? Man, when Allah is on your side, you don't have anything to worry about. Your enemies can't even think against you. They can't even plot against you. They can't do anything to harm you when Allah is on your side. Right? Anything in this world, whether it's your sustenance, whether it's your health, whether it's family issues, when Allah is with you, man, He'll work everything for you in ways which you can't even imagine. Right? Look, Ya'juj and Ma'juj, they're human beings. They have minds, they have intellect, they know how to rob, they know how to kill, they know how to plunder, they know how to do all of those things. But when it comes to crossing this wall, their mind is not going to work. Similarly, when a person is in Allah's protection, certain things will happen in that person's favor. Let's just say a guy's going for a job interview. He maybe don't got the credentials. He didn't get the best grades in college. He doesn't have the best degree. But guess what he has? He has Allah with him. Allah will put in that manager or boss or whoever it is, Allah will put in their heart, this is a good guy. This is the guy I'm looking for. This is my candidate. This is who I need. Allah will facilitate for you. Because all matters are in His control. Don't look at apparent things. Now, the juicy part. Where is this wall located? There are many opinions given on this, but I'm going to mention 4 of them. Okay? Number 1, and again, like I said, this is the research of the ulama. These are not from the Quran. They're not clearly mentioned in the hadith. We cannot say for sure. If it's right, walhamdulillah. If it's wrong, what can we say? Right? If it's wrong, it's wrong. Nobody ever said, you have to believe in this 100%. These are predictions. So number 1, the ulama mention Southern Caucasia, Tibet, China, this area. Right? And part of the reason why is because historically, these places faced a lot of turmoil from certain tribes which people believe could be from the Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Right? And around this area, which wall do you have? You have the Great Wall of China. Right? So this is one view. But most people have rejected this view. And the reason why is because this wall is a little bit more east. Whereas, if you look at the ahadith and history, it shows us that the wall of Dhul Qarnayn is a little bit more north. So the Great Wall of China doesn't really make sense to fit this description. Number 2, an area near Bukhara and Tirmidh. This is in modern day Uzbekistan and Iran. And There's also mention of this wall from many famous historians. The Mughal king Taimur also mentioned this big wall. And it's actually called Babul Hadid, the wall of iron, near Uzbekistan and Iran, around that area. Now number 3 is in Russia. In Russia, there's a place called Babul Abwab, the door of all doors, the gates of all gates. Huge. Some people say that this could possibly be exactly where it is. But number 4, which many ulama, and my teacher Maulana Rizwan Kaji, hafidhahullah, he also thinks that this makes most sense, and most probably, in Russia, next to Babul Abwab, next to the first place, but a little bit more to the west, and higher up into the mountains, there's a place in the Caucasus Mountains. And guess where it is? Dagestan, Russia. I'm not saying Habib is Ya'juj Ma'juj. I never said that. But Dagestan, Russia, there's a place up in the mountains. Many people say this could highly possibly be where the Ya'juj and Ma'juj were isolated. Right? And what's interesting about this opinion is that historians mention the person who built this wall. Some say Alexander the Great. But we know that that's not Dhul Qarnayn. But a lot of other historians, guess who they say built this wall? Cyrus. And if you take, match 2 and 2, we said Cyrus is highly possible that is Dhul Qarnayn. And these historians are saying that Cyrus is the one that built this wall. That's a possible link, that it is Dhul Qarnayn, and this is the wall of Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Right? And this is actually the opinion of one of the greatest ulama of the recent past, Maulana Anwar Shah Kashmiri rahimahullah. He's also taken this opinion. Now, just something for us to understand. Ya'juj and Ma'juj being behind the wall, it does not mean that every single person of the Ya'juj and Ma'juj tribe, they're behind that wall. We mentioned before, they're descendants of Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam. Right? So that means many of them could have been what? Scattered about on the earth. So today you could have many of people from this tribe that are walking around, normal. But specifically, those people that were tyrants, bloodthirsty, robbing, looting, killing, that specific bunch, they are the ones that got trapped behind the wall in huge numbers. But it doesn't negate the fact that some of them could still be where? Out and about. In the Quran it's mentioned the verse, فَإِذَا جَاءَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي, when the promise of my Lord comes, جَعَلَهُ دَكَّا, that wall is going to be disintegrated. It's going to be broken up. Right? So, there are 2 opinions on this. Some of the ulama say, the wall will not break until Qiyamah. The wall will not disintegrate until what? Qiyamah, yani close to Qiyamah, when these signs are finally appearing. That's when the wall is going to break. But other ulama, the second opinion is, when the promise of my Lord comes, the wall will break. The promise doesn't have to mean Qiyamah. The promise could mean what? Whenever Allah wills. So it is possible that that wall has disintegrated. But the full plunge, the full force of the Ya'juj and Ma'juj is going to come out when? The ends of times. Although some of them have already come out from behind the wall. Right? This is what Allama Anwar Shah Kashmiri rahimahullah, that is what he said. And a lot of people believe that when you look at this area where he possibly could be, the Ya'juj and Ma'juj, where they could possibly be, and if you look at this wall of Dhul Qarnayn and their sifat, their qualities and description, many people say the Tartars, the Turks, the Mongols, these are all like from the same line. They say that these are the Ya'juj and Ma'juj. And that's why the Tartar invasions that took place against Islam, when they ransacked Baghdad, that was just like a little glimpse. That was just a little glimpse of what they will do in the times of Qiyamah. Did you guys know, even there were ulama at that time that said, these Tartars and this invasion, this is Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Qiyamah is about to happen right now. But of course, that statement will be rejected. Why? Because Ya'juj and Ma'juj will only come when? After Isa alayhi salam and after Dajjal. Their full force, that's going to happen at that time. So some say that, that was just a little glimpse of what happened, of what's going to happen later. So now the question comes, if no one's going to be able to fight against Ya'juj and Ma'juj, they will be so numerous in number, and they'll be so powerful, and nobody's going to be able to put up a fight against them. So then what's going to happen? What's going to happen to the believers? And what's going to happen finally to the Ya'juj and Ma'juj? On top of that mountain, on top of Mount Tur, where Isa alayhi salam and the believers will be, they'll be under siege. They can't come down to the city, they'll get killed. In Sahih Muslim, the narration mentions, the Prophet alayhi salam said, that at that time, the head of a cow will be more valuable than 100 dinars, 100 gold coins. Why? Because everybody's hungry. You don't have anything on there. Finally, what's going to happen? No arrow will be shot. No sword will be, no bullets. The Ya'juj and Ma'juj, they will eventually wipe out everyone who's in their vicinity on the earth. Nobody will live freely. It's basically Ya'juj and Ma'juj, they're going to roam the earth, and everybody is going to be in fortresses. Muslims will be on top of Mount Tur, other people will be on top of that mountain, other people will be locked up in that fortress, other people will be locked up over there. And the Ya'juj and Ma'juj are just going to be partying around all over the earth, everywhere, running around. And everyone's going to be in hiding from them. So many in number that is mentioned, they'll come to Lake Tabariya, near Jordan. The first of them will cross this lake, and by the time the last one crosses, the whole lake will be finished up. They'll drink the whole thing. And when the last person passes, he'll see there's like a little bit of wetness. Wasn't there water here before, one day? They'll finish up just like that. That's how many of them there will be. Right? And then look at their takabbur. Look at their arrogance. They will say, look guys, we finished everyone on earth. We finished everybody on the earth. Nobody can match up against us. Look, those guys are hiding there. Those guys are over there in their fortress. Nobody could beat us now. We finished everyone on the earth. What's the next step now? We're going to fight against the people in the heavens. Na'udhu billah. They'll say, we will now fight against the people in the heavens. Right? So look at that. Takabbur and arrogance. This is something that will lead a person to destruction. Don't ever hold your nose high in the air. Whatever that you have, big and small, significant and insignificant, whatever that you have it from the sheer fadl and mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing else. It's not from your own goodness. But Ya'juj and Ma'juj, they will think of themselves like this. And look what's going to happen. They will start firing arrows towards the sky. And the arrows will come down. وَعَلَيْهَا أَثَرُ الدَّمِ مَخْضُوبَةٌ بِدَمٍ. The arrows will come down and they will be dyed red with blood. That means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will return the arrows down red to make it seem like, yeah, you killed the people in the heavens also. This is called istidraj. Okay, istidraj. This is an important thing that we have to understand. Istidraj means when things are going good for you, when things are going smooth for you. So you think you're all good. You think Allah loves you. You think you're on top of the world. You think nothing can stop you and nothing can harm you. And what does Allah do? He doesn't give you a test to wake you up. If Allah gives you a test to wake you up, that means Allah loves you. If Allah gives you some sickness, and then you, oh man, I'm sick, oh, subhanallah, Ya Allah, forgive me, what was I thinking? I have no power. I better put my forehead down in sajda. That sickness is a gift from Allah to you. If you're making a lot of money and you think you're better than everybody else, and then something happens to you financially and you take a loss, and it brings you back to Allah and it makes you humble, that's a good thing for you. It's brought you back to reality. But this, when things are bad, is when you have istidraj. You're going against Allah, you're going against the deen, your takabbur is building up, your pride is building up, you think you're something, and what does Allah do? He continues to give you. Give. And then what happens? All at once in the end, suddenly, you are seized. And when you're seized like that at the end, it's a powerful grabbing by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's not what we want. Right? So that's why the ulama mentioned very importantly that calamities and tribulations, they are tests for us. But an even bigger test for us is what? Huh? No calamities. Being in a good state, this is a bigger trial and tribulation than sickness and hardship. Because when you go through sickness or hardship, financial loss, what happens? Automatically, naturally, you turn back to Allah. But if you have luxury of this dunya, what happens? You feel like indulging more in those blessings, you forget about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's what's going to happen with these Ya'juj and Ma'juj. And then Isa alayhi salam, he will finally make dua against them. When Isa alayhi salam makes dua against them, they will have some type of epidemic, disease that will come amongst them. And it will be like boils in their bodies. And there will be worms that will start to grow inside of those boils and literally cut their bodies in half. It's just going to rip open their bodies. And suddenly, all of them, they will die as if it was one death. They will all perish from that calamity, from that disease. And the next day, the Muslims and Isa alayhi salam, they'll come down from the mountain and they will not find shibrum min al-ard, not a handspan of earth, except that the remains, the corpse, the blood, the this, the that, and the remains of these Ya'juj and Ma'juj is going to cover the floor. And the stench will be unbearable. So much so, all the Muslims and Isa alayhi salam, they'll make dua. Okay, Ya'juj and Ma'juj, we're saved from their killing and all of this, but now there's another calamity. We can't take the smell. Ya Allah, help us, do something. And then Allah will send the birds, which will be like the bukhti camels, long necks. They will take all of the remains and they will throw it into the ocean. And still, there's going to be all, guts, pus, this, whatever on the floor. Allah will send a rain. And that rain, the Prophet ﷺ said, it will cleanse the earth and leave it shining like a mirror. And then that's going to be the end of the Ya'juj and Ma'juj. After Ya'juj and Ma'juj are gone, inna ma'al usri yusra. Just like there was so much difficulties in the time of Dajjal, finally we remained steadfast and we got rid of Dajjal. What happened after that? Prosperity, ease. Then Ya'juj and Ma'juj came, we remained firm, we were steadfast. Now what's going to happen again after Ya'juj and Ma'juj is gone? Again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give that period of peace and prosperity. Allah will command the earth, grow your crops. one pomegranate will be so big that the peel of that pomegranate will shade a whole group of people. It'll be like your tent. Shade you all. You can go to Yosemite, you don't have to buy a tent. Just go to Sprouts and buy a pomegranate. That's going to be your tent. You can all enjoy in Costco, in Yosemite. Ups and downs is part of life. Never ending. All the way till the end of time. Now I wanted to show you guys this. That's actually one of the statues that they made of Cyrus. And Ajib thing is, he's got two horns. And I also had another picture here. This is a possible route which Dhul Qarnayn took. So all of this west, this is where he came to the setting of the sun, or the rising of the sun. And then this is where he went furthest east. And right around this area where you see these mountains, the Caucasus, that's possibly where the wall was built. And another interesting thing is that you see here in the west, where they say that he went, right here you would see nothing but sea. And when the sun is setting, it looks like it's setting on murky waters because there's like little islands there. Right? So you see little areas of land and the sun is setting, so it looks like it's murky. Right? But subhanAllah, another thing that is very interesting is that there's a variation in qira'at, in the recitation of the Quran. And some read it instead of Ayn Hami'a, which means murky water. Some people read it as Ayn Hamiya, which means boiling waters or hot waters. And those islands that I just showed you, there are actually hot springs there, where people, they actually go there to bathe in these hot springs because they say it gives you a lot of medical benefits. But look, even if you take that understanding of it, the hot springs, whether you take it as murky water or hot water, it can match up both with that area where it's supposed Dhul Qarnayn was.